I welcome Ajay ji for the Nagar on the Nagar CP Study Circle platform, and thank you for accepting our invitation for sharing your experience and knowledge about the subject. I now request CA Nidhi Lalpuria, core group member of Nagar CP Study Circle, to introduce the speaker.
Thank you, Seema ma'am. It's a pleasure to introduce you, sir. Shri Ajay R. Singh, advocate, Bombay High Court. He's an LLB, LLM, Mumbai University. He joined the bar in August 2000, and since then, he is in professional practice. He's practicing as a counsel before Supreme Court, High Court, Appellate Tribunal, Settlement Commission, Commissioner Appeal, and also appearing before the Metropolitan Magistrate Court in tax prosecution cases. His main area of practice includes domestic tax, search and survey matters, international taxation, transfer pricing, prosecution matters related to taxation. He specialized in drafting and appearing in writ petitions and appeals before High Court and SLP before Supreme Court, drafting, consulting in real estate transactions. He's advising on clients on various direct tax issues like Benami law, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, testamentary matters, prosecution matters related to taxation and real estate transactions. He is associated with filing various public interest litigations and has contributed to various articles and papers for various professional journals and magazines, and also delivered lectures and presented papers to various professional bodies like All India Federation of Tax Practitioners Journals, Bombay Chartered Accountant, Chambers Journal, ITAT Online. He has co-authored various books on taxation and allied laws like Appellate Tribunal under Income Tax, Penalty and Prosecution, Reassessment Law and Practice, Interpretation of Taxing Statutes, HUF, Capital Gain in Real Estate Transactions, many, sir. So he's an active participant in various professional and social organizations. He was the president of the Chamber of Income Tax Consultant for 1718 and was a joint secretary of ITAT Bar Association, Mumbai. He is also joint assistant editor for AIFTP Journal Chambers Journal. With that, I welcome you, sir. You can start your session.
Thank you, Nidhi ma'am, Seema ji, Krishna Kumar ji, for giving me an opportunity to present this paper on drafting skills and communication with the income tax authorities. To this, keeping this program, I can see large number of participants even on Sunday morning. This shows the importance of the study circle itself. Though during the physical, when I used to visit once in a year, at least I used to visit JB Nagar. At that time also the numbers used to be quite large, but I am seeing on this online platform also equally the numbers are there. That shows and speaks about this study circles to various other to all the people. So the importance of this study circle can be seen. And yes, we are in a COVID situation and lot of other difficulties are there, changes are coming, not in the income tax act but also in our personal lives. But as it's a change is something, a fact of life which we need to accept and move along with it. And I think so this study circle is doing a lot of good work in hosting these types of programs for their members, so that the study can go on along with at the same time. So friends, coming to the topic of the day, drafting submissions representations before the tax authorities. Till date, the emphasis was always given more on the knowledge what you possess, the certificates, or yes, you are passed, or where you have gained the experience, but very less importance was given on the writing skills of a professional. The importance was also more giving that how much contacts you have, what is your networking. Yes, I know this person, I know that person. All this has gone away now. And now a lot of emphasis is there on your own personal writing skill. Earlier, what used to happen that even if your drafting was not so great and there was some lacuna or something was left out, uh, during the time of hearing, the counsel or maybe the representative used to cover up that particular deficiency in his oral argument. and oral argument and presentation was given lot of importance. Now that is also taking a backseat, and the first and foremost requirement to all professionals will be their own writing skills, their own drafting skills, how they are communicating to the tax officials, how they are putting up their concern before the tax officials. That will be a very important factor. So friends, before we jump to directly to the issues that are involved in communication skills and with the income tax authorities, let us just understand the change scenario right now, which has led to understand this particular topic today. So let me share with you my screen. Yes. So let's spend some time on the background of this topic, and we shall keep at the end 20 minutes to 30 minutes for the question answers, which we can take it at the end of this talk. So if you will see, for any good representation, the foundation of any good representation is basically that a representative or the professional should know the facts of its case, the law what is involved, and also the procedure what is there. And he needs to understand the various concepts that are involved in that particular area or field. Though we are focusing here on income tax authorities, but friends, now you should know that a chartered accountant has also a right to appear before various other forums, like the GST department, in Binami transaction proceedings, in PMLA proceedings, before SEBI authorities, before NCLT, and there are many such other forums where chartered accountants are now entitled to make representation and appear before those authorities. So one needs to understand the various legal principles which are revolving around each such legislation, understand the doctrines which are laid down. Interpretation of statute is something which one should have a very good hold. More so now when your representations are going to be more on in a written form rather than the oral form. And also one has to be updated with the legal provision. So when we talk about assessment, is normally we understand that assessment is understood as a process of determining the tax liability, and which has been defined under section 2 subsection 8. And therefore this assessment takes place before the assessing officer, which in the change scenario, you will see that different units of assessment will be involved in this new faceless regime, and subject to the changes in the other law also, which we have seen that recently the reassessment provisions are also being changed. What has been understood from so long, and the principles were settled, now that has been undergone a sea change. Similarly, you also see that the penalty 270A has undergone a sea change. When you are making your representation, you have to keep in mind these change circumstances, these changes in law. So accordingly, your submissions, your representations has to be made. You cannot happen that you make your representation, submit certain facts before the assessing officer at the initial stage without understanding what will be the consequences in the second or the alternative proceedings. Uh, uh, I will give you few live examples also as I move on to explain how the problems arises if we are not aware about the consequences of our submissions or certain admissions which are made before the income tax authorities. Just briefly, I will touch upon the new e-assessment scheme, which is there because that is the very basis of our topic. So in the new e-assessment, there is a lot of hue and cry about this new e-assessment scheme, which also now takes into within its fold the e-assessment is that appeal, faceless appeal will also be taken within its fold. More or less, the scheme is similar to what is the e-assessment as far as the appeal is concerned. So now the practice area of a chartered accountant will also change. What was earlier required, the personal presence before the assessing officer, where you used to file your submissions, your details before the officer and explain him, resolve his query, that has gone away. Now it is something that you have to just submit online. He will understand and he will put up a query in writing which you have to answer. So the whole proceedings has the gamut of the whole proceedings has changed. Now it will be more in a manner where a show cause notice will be issued to you. You need to understand that and reply accordingly to the assessing officer. There are certain teething problems in that, which I understand that over a period of time, how the things will revolve, these teething problems will be resolved. In the initial stage, I understand there will be a lot of issues, but as the government as well as the tax department is committed to implement this new scheme, these problems will be sorted out over a period of time. At the same time, as a professional, we need to also equip ourselves to deal with these types of situation. The days are gone where we used to go to the officer at our whims. We used to seek adjournments orally from the officers, and we used to go to the officer's cabin at the convenient time and submit the details, sort adjournments. Now all this has gone. Now everything is on an electronic mode, and therefore whatever is written in black and white will only be seen, and it will be recorded also. It is good from one side, as when you talk about the SSC, there will be no question of backdating. There will be no question that yes, this has been done or this has not been done. It will be purely seen from the portal. It will be purely seen from the assessment records, which will be in an electronic form, and there will be no question that something has been backdated or something has been put behind the back of the SSC. So that problem will be resolved to a great extent. Just briefly seeing the new scheme, some of the important features of the new scheme will be that this scheme will be a code by itself. It will have its own function, its rules, how it will move around, how the proceedings will be conducted. Certain exceptions are given in this for search and seizure survey matters. Objective of this faceless, as we have understood when the scheme was introduced, was to curb away corruption, bring more transparency, objectivity in the tax administration, and to avoid the physical contact between the taxpayer and the taxman. And the whole purpose was to have a free and fair assessment to be done. This system will be now worked in a national e-assessment center, which will be headquartered at Delhi, and 8 regional centers which will be located at different cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Calcutta, Ahmedabad, Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad. These regional centers will be there. These regional centers will have power to conduct and set up its procedure and rules to solve the technical difficulties or other difficulties to its regional offices. One of the important feature also of this regime is notices without DIN number, document identification number, will be invalid. In past, we have seen many a times cases have come that notices are issued and SSCs has disputed that we have not received such notice, or they have not aware about communication of this notice, and lot of litigation used to move around that whether this notice has been issued, whether this notice has been served. And at times the SSC as well as the department used to take advantage of this particular situation. Now, because of this, all notices has to be on a DIN number. That aspect has been done away. If a notice has to be issued prior to 31st March, it has to be have a DIN number of that particular date prior to that date. Otherwise, that notice, if it is generated thereafter, it will be held to be an invalid. So these types of technical problems, procedural problems which were there, which will be resolved. Faceless scheme, which is also notified for appeal, is, as I said, it is similar to the faceless assessment. In the faceless appeal also, there will be all the CIT appeal right from the allocation of appeal, issuance of notices, verification, and everything will be done from an online basis. The system will run the similar line on the basis of a faceless assessment. You will not be aware that who is your CIT appeal. The CIT appeal may be sitting at some particular city and will be hearing your matter. The issue of hearing before a CIT appeal is still being tested, and some forums have challenged that particular aspect, which is very subjectively given to the chief commissioner, power of given to the chief commissioner to allow hearing in certain matters. So that particular aspect has been challenged, and we have to wait and watch how the courts look upon that particular rules, or the CBDT comes out with some criteria that in certain class of cases this or certain criteria for certain class of cases where a oral hearing can be given. So more or less we have to understand how the assessment proceedings will be there. Similarly, the appellate proceedings will be also conducted, and these jurisdiction of these appellate body will have a dynamic jurisdiction. So you cannot have that, yes, your earlier you used to know that this is your jurisdictional assessing officer and the appeal will go to this particular CIT appeals or not. Now this will not be possible. So as I said in the beginning, the networking, what a few professionals used to boast about, that yes, I have this networking, I know this or I know that particular person, that will be done away, and everyone will be placed at one particular platform, and you will be allowed to put forth your argument. So it is a very good scope for the newcomers, for the professionals who are looking forward for having a practice under the litigation side. According to me, it is a good opportunity for them to develop this area of practice also. So what we have understand from the scheme, that these centers and units will have a specific jurisdiction where there will be a national faceless assessment center who will conduct the assessment proceedings, and then there will be regional faceless centers who will be controlling the whole particular assessment proceeding and facilitate in conducting the e-assessment proceeding. There will be an assessment unit to identify the issues, a particular information is there or any clarification is there. This particular unit will take care. Now whole process, there might be an issue of verification which will be involved, so there is a separate verification issue, verification unit also, to conduct inquiry, cross verification, examination of books, and such other functions which will be assigned to this verification unit. There will be a technical unit which will provide a technical assistance or advice on legal, accounting, information technology, valuation, transfer pricing, such type of technical matters wherever is involved. This technical unit will be providing this assistance to the assessment units and the main assessment officers. There will be a review unit. So whenever a draft assessment order is formed, to put and check and balance, this unit has been created, where this unit will look into the relevant documents which has been provided by the SSC, will look into the draft assessment order and will see that whether the draft assessment order is in accordance with law, is with accordance with the document which has been subjected, so that there will be no chance of error, or inaccurate orders or erroneous orders are passed by the assessing officer. So these will be a broad area of function of this e-assessment proceeding. Now coming to the representation part. Now if we have understood the whole e-assessment proceedings, how it is going to move around, how these 7 units are there and how these 7 units will function within its sphere. So we need to understand and accordingly try to present our case before the assessing officer. Now, as we go forward, we should also understand some provisions of Income Tax Act which has been brought in, more specifically about service, electronic service of notice. So we need to understand to Section 282, which earlier had provided the modes, only 2 modes of service now over a period of time has been amended, and it provides various modes of service through electronic modes also, where the change in accordance with the Information Technology Act. And earlier the physical notice now has been done away. Now the notices will be served to you through the email address that has been provided by you in your return of income or your last return of income which has been filed. So it is very important for you now that in case of all the SSCs, as a professional where you are filing the return of income, you have to see that you provide the correct email address, the correct mobile numbers of the SSC, so that the emails which are sent by the income tax department is received by the SSC or by their representatives. In many cases, we have found that email address is just put for sake of putting of any staff member of the office, or any staff member of the SSC is concerned. And later point of time, after a year or two, when these notices are issued, the SSC simply says, I have not issued, I have not received on my email. And when we checked, we found that the email address is given is of somebody else, which is not more no more associated with the SSC or even with the firm at times. So I think so the first and foremost important thing what as a professional we should do is check the profile of each SSC, update that profile with the correct address, telephone number, contact details, email address, which is very important. These things should be done at the most earliest point of time, so that any communication is there with the department is received by the SSC or by their representative. We need to understand this provision section 282, which provides that the communication will be done through the email address provided in the return of income. In case of a company, the other mode is that email address which is provided on the site website of Ministry of Corporate Affairs will also be taken into consideration for sending the emails, or any email address made available to the addressee to the income. So if there is any other email or correspondence which has been made with the income tax department and that is available with the officer, he may communicate you with the notice on that email address also. So you need to understand that how important this communication channel is, and therefore you have to see the profile of the SSC is up to date in the records of the income tax department. You need also to see provision section 133C, which basically empowers and provides the income tax authorities to call for information and documents from any person for verification. This provision was brought in by Finance Act 2017, and has inserted section 133C subsection 3 to basically for putting up a scheme for centralized issuance of notice and for verification. Over a period of time in 2019 also, this centralized verification scheme was brought in, where how this notice has to be issued, how the data has to be collected, how this verification has to be conducted by the department. A scheme was formulated. So now the government is going to work from this centralized verification unit and information unit, where all the data will be collected, it will be verified, it will be analyzed by those officer, and thereafter this information will be thrown to the respective units to take care the further proceedings. So these powers have been provided to the officers to conduct these type of investigations and inquiries. The manner for in processing this information will be prescribed. Certain rules have been also framed in this regard. Similarly, powers have been given under section 133B, 134 and 135, basically to conduct these types of inquiry, to collect this information, to analyze this information, and thereafter to send it to the different units. The objective of these provisions are basically to bring transparency and accountability in the whole process of investigation and collecting this information. So we need to understand this provision, how the department is going to function henceforth. This provision now you try to link, which was brought in since 2017, changes were made in 2019, thereafter certain rules were also brought in 2020, also some amendments were carried out. Now you please try to link this provision with the reassessment provision, which has been brought in by the Finance Bill 2021, where the whole provision of reassessment has gone a sea change. Now the whole reassessment will be based on information. What is the information which is received by the income tax department from the various units of the income tax department, that will be used for the purpose of assessing the income, for finding out whether any income has escaped the assessment, and on that basis the reopening of assessment will be done under section 147. So you have to understand these provisions, that right from 2017 the government was bringing such type of rules, such type of provisions, which ultimately accumulate in having such type of provision where the whole reassessment now will be based on information, which will be supplied and through these centralized units formed by the government. So we need to understand how the government is going to function, and accordingly we should also be equipped to deal with these types of situation. And as I said earlier also, that this step which has been taken by the government is ultimately to give benefit to large number of SSCs. Yes, there will be teething problems at the beginning, but as a professional, if we contribute more towards making this system a robust system, I think so ultimately it will be benefited to all, not only to the SSCs but to the professionals at large, and more particularly to the upcoming new professionals who are looking forward to joining this profession. I think so there will be a clean system which will be working on a very transparent manner. So we have to welcome this new scheme, the new system of faceless assessment, and try to work on this to resolve the teething problem. So one of the thing which we see that, and we experience, and everybody is pointing out, that earlier we used to go to the revenue authorities, make them understand a particular transaction, provide them with the details. If the assessing officer had some query, he used to raise those query, and we used to resolve those query upfront on across the desk. That was a very healthy discussion to make the transaction understand to the assessing officer and to avoid any erroneous order being passed. Now, in the new regime, the problem, and the first problem which everybody is going to face, is that I am providing the details, but how these details are looked into by the income tax department or that particular authority who is scanning through my documents, it is very difficult for us to guess. And therefore, what will be the result of his inquiry or his verification, we are not aware. And maybe chances of passing an erroneous order, incorrect order, understanding the transaction in an incorrect way is quite likely and possible. And to avoid this, the importance is that we should have a very good communication skill, writing skill, and when we are making the presentation before the assessing officer. Right of hearing, as I said, that is a basic fundamental right, but it is not a right that you claim it in each and every proceedings. When we talk about income tax proceeding, it is more a administrative proceeding, and therefore you cannot claim it as a matter of right that every time you will have a right of hearing. Though the process, the scheme has been framed in such a way that the assessing officer will issue you a show cause notice, and you will have to reply. There will be a draft assessment order which will be passed, and thereafter the final order will be passed, and there will be different units to look into that various technical aspects for verification and other aspects, which will try to reduce the chances of passing erroneous orders by the officers. So very important is that we understand the query of the income tax officer when the notices are issued, and thereafter file the reply. So I have tried to list out certain issues. I understand there might be many other issues. If I have not covered in my presentation some issues, you may please take up in your question answer session. So to best of my ability, I have tried to list out certain issues and I will be dealing with that. So the first point what we see is that the notice what we receive from the income tax department. So in the new regime, the moment your notice is received, we have to understand and the notice, what is the purpose. Now here I am just not talking about a notice of assessment which is issued. I am talking about any notice which is issued by the income tax department. It is for scrutiny assessment, or it is for levy of penalty, or it is calling for some information. The foremost important thing is that we need to understand the notice, the purpose of the notice, under which provision this notice has been issued. After understanding what is the information call, is has to be collected, it has to be understood from the SSE, and thereafter we have to reply to the same or upload or provide this information to the income tax department. While receiving this notice also, we have to take care to understand what are the time limits which has been provided in the notice for submission of the details. We cannot be at our leisure for filing these details. We have to go by this notice. In case you have any issue with the notice, for example, the notice has been issued from an incorrect jurisdiction, or the notice has been issued to an incorrect SSE which is received by you on your portal, because there are cases where notices are being issued in the name of some other SSE, and it has been received by some other SSE because of goof up of the email ID. And therefore the notices are being sent at the wrong address. At such a situation arise, the first and foremost thing is that you have to question that, you have to raise a query in this regard to the concerned officer on the email or the portal which has been provided by in the particular notice. And if there is a defective notice, you have to object to it in a timely manner. You cannot wait for the last moment and thereafter raise this query. So this thing has to be done at the foremost. So the moment this notice is received, you just can't say that, okay, this is the notice, yes, we will do it, or at our leisure, or do it at our convenient time. No, the moment you receive this notice, you have to put your SSE on guard, inform him that these notices are there, get the details, and try to scrutinize those details and submit the necessary reply. I will give you a live example of these notices and how notices are being looked by the representatives as also by the SSEs. Now this, in this new regime of appeal, faceless appeal, these notices are issued. The notices are basically running in 2 pages, or in some cases 3 pages. The first page or the first paragraph of this notice talks about Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. The subsequent paragraph thereafter talks that in case you do not wish to go for this scheme, thereafter you will go through the whole appeal proceedings. And thereafter the paragraph mentioned that please submit your submissions, representations, whatever you want on the particular portal. And thereafter there is a date, another paragraph is there where the date is given, the last date for making the submission. Now, many times I've seen that SSC or even the representative, they don't turn the pages or go through the notice completely. They just download the notice, keep it, and they say this notice is received, asking the SSC whether they want to go for Vivad Se Vishwas, and they don't go and see the second page where there is also mentioned that in case you do not want to opt for Vivad Se Vishwas, you have to make the submission, and there is some timeline which is given. And this timeline is many times in at least 30% of the cases are being lost even without making requesting for an adjournment. So friends, my first request is that whenever these notices are received, kindly go through the complete notice. Don't read the first paragraph and try to conclude something. Please go through the complete notice. Most of the SSCs and I have seen representative have in the impression that these notices which are issued by the income tax department is only for the purpose asking the SSC that whether they want to opt for Vivad Se Vishwas scheme or not. If you will go through the subsequent paragraph, you will realize that this notice also asks the SSC that in case you do not want to opt for that scheme, you kindly make the submission, and there is a deadline which is given. So what has to be done in such type of cases? You have to immediately file a request for adjournment, seeking some time of 2 weeks or 3 weeks for making your submissions and filing your paper book, etc. So these things has to be done. So the request is that whenever these notices are coming, please go through the notice carefully before coming to any conclusion. Compliance to the notice, that once a notice is received, you have to reply and comply to the requirement of the notice in a timely manner. You cannot wait and seek adjournment after adjournment. Understand how the system works. The system gives you a particular time, and it is automatically giving you this time whatever you have requested, because there is no communication from the other side. So you have to act in a timely manner. You cannot say that no, I have not seen the notices. The moment you visit your portal, the time is recorded. The income tax department is aware that yes, on this particular time you have seen the notice, you have been aware about this. So you have to be very careful before replying anything or denying any fact of receipt of notice. For compliance of the notice, you have to get this information from the SSC, inform the SSC about these notices, and put the necessary reply to the concerned officer in a timely manner. When you are submitting the reply, kindly see in what context these queries are being raised. Try to be very specific. Make your submission to the points what has been raised by the officer. If there are various points which are being given, please give point wise submission, point wise reply. If you are attaching certain documents for each reply, kindly mark them, do paging of the document, prepare a proper index, and thereafter give the reference of the page numbers in your submission, in your reply, and thereafter upload the same. If required, you can also prepare a brief note about your summary of your submission or your reply if it is a detailed questionnaire which has been asked, so that it is easy for the officer to make a reference to the documents what you have submitted. So do the compliance of the notice in a timely manner and in the to the point what has been raised. In case you have certain difficulties, then you seek proper time, you seek adjournment, but it should be done at the earliest point of time. So you inform the officer that you need further time to gather this information, and therefore the time may be provided. The also in the another important point what you need to, as if you are appearing as a representative, see that you file your authority letter with the officer in context to the notice which has been issued. The next point what I have taken is the show cause notice on any issue. So as in this new regime, one of the important and beneficial point is that if the assessing officer wants to proceed on a particular issue, the assessing officer needs to issue a specific show cause notice. If the show cause notice has been issued, the SSC is entitled to reply to that particular show cause notice on the points which has been raised on that particular show cause notice. So the reply should be very specific to the point raised by the officer in the show cause notice, and the supporting documents has to be filed. Once the facts has been narrated, and if there are some legal contention or there is some interpretation of some document which is in fault, then the SSC has to reply to that, narrate the proper sequence of the event, the facts, and bring out the correct provision, the legal provision or your point of your concern before the assessing officer. If at last you feel that your point of contention is also required to be supported through some legal judgments, then you kindly quote them, and not only quote them but provide a copy of the same to the officer by uploading the judgment on the portal along with the reply of, or then the documents which you are going to submit. So all this has to be done. Many a time there are many judgments which are unreported or which are reported in some particular software which has been we are using nowadays. So these judgments may not be easily available to the concerned officer. So therefore that copies may also always be provided along with your submissions. Also, a very important point which you should understand, that whenever we used to cite earlier judgments of jurisdictional high court, for example, we are all sitting in Mumbai, a judgment of Bombay High Court is binding on all the officers who are working within this jurisdiction. Certainly, your jurisdiction will be your assessing officer of Mumbai, though the online officer or the faceless officer might be sitting in some other region. But if you are relying or citing a jurisdictional high court decision, you should make a point of making a reference that you are being assessed in Mumbai, and therefore the jurisdictional high court decision will be binding on the officer, and that has to be applied in the case there is a controversial decision of two high courts, or there are difference of views between two tribunals or high court. So all these points you need to take care. You have to be very sure when the documents are being submitted, especially when there are agreements are involved. Interpretation of these documents has to be put forth correctly, as it has been recorded in the document and understood by the parties. Instruction from the client, as I said, these are the online proceedings. Whenever you are making any submission, you see that a proper instruction is being taken on fax from the SSC, because once you are making these submissions online, it will bind the SSC for time to come. You have to be very sure when you are admitting any particular fact or admitting a particular position, legal position on facts or in law, you have to be very sure that these details which you have obtained from the SSE are correct and true, and thereafter you have to submit. You have to be also very careful when these details you are receiving from the SSE. Many a times these details are being given by the SSE without verification, and later on it may turn that it was not the final document, or it was not the final invoice, or the final ledger, or the any other thing, and you by mistakenly you submit these details. You may understand that there is now provision section 278, which also provides for the liability of a professionals which are involved, and therefore you have to be very careful when you are submitting details, or providing information to the income tax department on behalf of your clients, because section 278 talks about abatement of false returns, etc. So even if you are making certain accounts or certain statements, the section says that delivery and an account statement declaration relating to any income chargeable to tax. So if anything is been submitting relating to the account statement or declaration in relation to the return of income by a professional, he has to be careful. He has to see, double check whether this information is correct. If required, you should take the signatures of the very careful when you are submitting these details with the income tax department. Because these provisions which has been brought earlier, these provisions were not being implemented by the income tax department, or was not put to use a very regular basis. But in last few years we are seeing that the departments are going using these prosecution provision and these penal provision extensively in cases, in various cases, and lot many prosecution and such type of cases are being filed by the department. One of the very live example I will tell you in this is in the cases involving bogus purchases. So there are cases where earlier the assessing officer used to make 100% addition. However, later point of time, after seeing that tribunals and courts are deleting this addition and trying to restrict the addition at some percentage, assessing officers have started also doing it on percentage basis, maybe at 25% or GP ratio or something like that. Many a times without taking instructions, the professionals admit before the assessing officer saying that yes, we agree for this particular percentage of addition, and at later point of time when these assessments are completed and these additions are being made, the assessing officer launched the penalty provisions against the SSC in regards to the addition sustained. At that point of time, the SSC wakes up and just says, no, 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 I had all the details, and why you have agreed at this particular percentage. We could have gone further down at 12.5 or even more lesser than that. So you have to be very careful when you are admitting a particular provision. I have seen that even in cases where the additions are being made on estimate basis of 12.5 or something, or the GP ratio, department is still initiating penalty provisions. Though these penalty provisions, ultimately the additions, the penalty has been deleted by the tribunal, but the whole round of litigation one has to go. I have cases where on a similar situation, prosecutions are also being launched. Now the only problem is that the SSC has admitted the position before the assessing officer and no appeal is filed. In such a case, it becomes very difficult going before a criminal court and trying to explain now the case, because there is a admission on part of the SSC accepting a particular position. It is a matter of different point that it is a case of an estimated addition, and therefore whether prosecution will lie or not, that is a different matter. But the point what I'm trying to make out is that the department initiates the proceeding, and it is thereafter the whole process has to undergo, and only thereafter a particular conclusion will come after the trial is over, or you have to go for compounding of the offenses, which is again a very expensive affair. So one has to keep all these factors in mind when you are making your representation in writing, because whatever you have written and you have communicated to the department, that will be used every time in all the other consequential proceedings. Notice containing reliance on third party evidence statement. So I always, whenever I have various lectures on points, I always say that whenever the department is relying on a third party evidence, a statement of a third party, see that you demand the copy of the same. In the new regime also, there are units which is provided for carrying out verification. So whenever a notice is issued or a show cause notice is issued by the officer asking you an explanation in regards to certain statement which has been recorded, or in regards to certain evidence which has been found in premises of a third party, or some statement has been given by some broker or some third party, in such a situation, the first and foremost thing one has to do is demand the copy of these statements, demand the copy of these documents. Until and unless you don't get this document, you should avoid filing a reply upfront. You have to demand the same, and you have to wait for the details to be received. If the officer is not replying or is not providing detail, record your protest in that, record your objection to that, and maybe alternatively, if facts demands or the facts are such as your case, you may submit some explanation in that regard. But asking the copies of these documents and evidence is must. If you fail to ask this document, maybe now in this particular regime, the second and the first appellate proceeding, it will be very difficult to answer or to provide this information or deal with these types of issue. Earlier, we even used to try to take these plea at a later stage of the proceedings. But in the electronic media, in this form, it will be very easy for the department to pinpoint that this was questioned and he has never demanded that same. So all these facts you need to take care, and you have to be very specific when you are putting your reply. Your reply has to be simple and specific on each point. It cannot be in a form of a thesis, or it cannot be in a general form where you just try to hit behind the bushes to answer the queries of the department. Production of certain third party evidence and document. If there is a requirement where you need to produce a confirmation from a third party, and this information is not available with you, or the particular party is not cooperating, make specific requests providing the details of the party, the name, the address, the contact details, the PAN number, whatever details you have of that particular party. Inform that you are not in a position to gather this information from the third party, or that third party is not cooperating with you, and therefore the assessing officer should issue the notice, necessary notice, and carry out the necessary verifications and inquiries directly from that particular party. So this necessary notices, and this has to be issued and be requested to the officer to carry out this investigation. When you are making such type of communication, it is very important that you are very specific. Don't be general that you issue notice to a party without even naming the party. I have seen in some proceedings where there are various parties are involved, various documents are involved, especially in the case of a third search and survey. The general statements are made. Kindly provide me complete all the statement. Kindly provide me the seized material without being specific. You have to be very specific. You have to be very specific in regards to which party you want to carry out the verification, or you want the particular verification to be carried out by the officer in regards to a particular issue. So be very specific and demand these types of make these types of requests to the assessing officer. Another issue comes is new claim before the assessing officer. What happens many a times when we are filing our return, certain claims which have been left out, or you have taken a particular legal position while filing the return of income, but at a later point of time you find that this particular legal position has been changed. This particular legal provision has been changed, and now the law is either in your favor, or you are entitled to raise a new claim, or you have missed out to raise a particular point in your return of income, and you want to change that particular position. Now, if this is the position, you have to raise before the officer with a specific letter your new claim. It can't be that you generally raise this claim amongst the other details when you are filing a reply to a notice or a show cause notice of the officer. No, your reply or your letter in regards to the new claim has to be very specific. Separate letter has to be filed. You have to give reasons first why the claim was not, you are not able to raise in your return of income. What is the change in the position? Give the necessary documents in support. If there is a new computation which is required to be submitted, please submit the new computation. Please submit the new revised computation. uh, uh, if there is a requirement of submitting or making changes in your audit report, or submit some revised computation, please do that. Please submit that. If there are necessary forms to be filed, kindly submit that along with your new claim. When I'm making this particular point, I appreciate that you all are aware about the decision of Gods India, which says that a new claim or which is not made in the return of income has to be only in the form of a revised return. If time permits, you should file a revised return. I understand even if you raise a new claim, if the assessing officer may not entertain your claim, or he may not allow your particular claim. If you have made these types of submission and raised a claim before the assessing officer along with supporting evidence, documentary evidence, it will be easy for you at the first appellate stage to raise a ground of this new claim and get it admitted and adjudicated by the first appellate authorities. Don't wait that, yes, this is a new claim, assessing officer will not entertain and I will raise only at a later stage. Don't commit this mistake. Raise your claim before the assessing officer. Be very specific. What is the claim? What will be the changes in your computation? What will be the effect on your taxable income? Make this claim, give the supporting documents, and thereafter proceed with the assessment. If there is any change in the figures, if there is any change in any other contention, kindly bring out before the officer. Also, many a times there are alternate contentions which are there, which you are, it is not possible in your return of income to raise those alternate contention or a different dimension to the particular claim. In such a situation, when you are making your submission before the assessing officer, do point out to the assessing officer that even if you do not agree with the first proposition or the first ground, you may allow the claim on the alternative ground, which is also available in law, and bring out the necessary provision before the assessing officer. If there are changes in law, and because of the change in law due to certain decision, please bring out this fact to the knowledge of the assessing officer in your submission. My next point is presentation. When you are making, as I said, when you are presenting anything, when various facts are involved, various figures are involved, then kindly use charts and tables. Extensively try to make use of this charts and table. And I understand, though lawyers are not so much used to making of these types of charts and table, but as a chartered accountant you are very used to making these types of charts and tables in your presentation. When you are making representation before the officer, kindly use these charts and tables to make a very effective representation before the officer. If you are filing a very bulky paper book of 200 pages and you are making a submission of 30 to 40 pages, it is necessary that along with your submission, make a summary of your contention, give a chart, give a table about the issues which are involved, necessary documents, whatever you have filed. If there are certain inquiries made in regard to certain parties, issues of, for example, loans are there, and there are large number of parties, prepare a chart, give the summary of the parties involved, their name, address, documents submitted, documents not available, documents submitted directly by the party. If you have summary of these charts, the opening balance, the closing balance, so all this, if you are presented in a proper chart form, in a table form, it will be very easy for the officers who are sitting on the other end to understand those things, grasp those things, and get the correct facts before the officer. So because it is now our duty also to see that how easy we make the life of the other person who is on the other side so easy, so that he doesn't passes any erroneous order which will make the life of our SSC in difficulty. So it is our duty foremost now to see that the officer understand, and he understands only the correct thing in the case, and doesn't get diverted to unwanted things, or understand something which is otherwise to the facts which is involved. So these points are very important when you are making your representation. I have seen many times when the submissions are being made, the submission, the main points and the contention which is there, instead of making those points and answering those points and contention, the submission is more like a thesis. It goes to some other aspects of the matter. There are large number of decisions which are cited in the submission, and when I have interacted with those representatives, they say that yes, these are the articles which I have gathered through various forums, from various lecture meetings, and from there I have just picked up and I have dumped in the submission. And they try to make the submission as lengthy as much they can, trying to put large number of decisions. I think so that should not be the purpose. When you are making a submission, don't try to make your submission so bulky that earlier when it was a physical hearing, when you used to file this, the officer though used to never go through the same, but we were in a position to explain him that yes, this is the point, these are the things, these are the things. But now in this new regime, that will not be possible. So try to make your submission more specific. Let's not make it very bulky, and be very specific to the issues involved, and try to bring out the correct fact on record, the correct legal position which is there, the correct interpretation which you want to put forth with in regards to a particular section or provision of law. So you have to highlight these facts very clearly and very precisely, so that if the assessing officer wants to pass an order against you, he has to deal with the same. He has to give a reason why he is not agreeing to your point, and thereafter pass the order. Because as I said, now there are 7 units which are involved. When he will prepare the draft order, that will be checked by the other units also, and thereafter only the final order will be passed. So these things are very necessary for your better communication with the tax department in this new regime. So the basic is that use simple language, be very specific, when you are uploading the document, make a particular folder while uploading. uh, Recently I had a case where the submission, everything was perfect. The chartered accountant informed me that the document was also there. He had uploaded the document, but by mistake later on, after the assessment order is passed and now the appeal is being fixed, he noticed that while submitting the document, he by mistakenly submitted some wrong document. Though the assessing officer has not commented on that, but from the portal, if you try to download those documents and try to check those documents, a wrong document was by mistake submitted, which was not, and it was unintentionally which had been done, but a wrong document had been submitted. So my advice is that do double check before uploading a document. Even after the document has been uploaded, try to recheck the same and see that it is the same document which you intended to upload with the portal. And if there is some mistake which has been committed by mistake, this it happens, that some wrong mistake or something has been done, try to correct it immediately. Try to submit the correct document with a covering letter saying that some wrong document at so and so page on so and so date was submitted. The same may be ignored and the correct document may be looked into it. So that sort of submission and representation should be made. While making a representation, try to be use simple language. Don't try to borrow or try to use language of certain books or certain authors, which will make the whole transaction more complicated, look more complicated. Try to explain your transaction as has been understood by your SSC, and try to put forth in a simple language. Give a cross reference to various clauses or the particular document is involved, and try to explain your case. You can also, if required, if any particular fact is there which is within the personal knowledge of the SSC, if required, you should also file necessary affidavit also, to avoid any alternate argument from the department side. Don't use terminologies which is not used in the normal communication with the department. Many times we are using WhatsApp and so on, so we have a habit of using abbreviations, short forms. So don't try to use or put those things when you are making your submissions. Try to put the complete sentence, complete words you make. Don't use harsh words, don't use negative statements, don't put cross questions in your submissions, and try to give a simple answer, a simple reply to the assessing officer in context to the query what have been raised. Try to always put at the last sentence to the assessing officer in your submission, saying that if any clarification is required, please inform us or give us an opportunity to clarify the points. So these types of submissions and sentences should be used whenever you are starting a letter. Give a cross reference to the earlier submission you have made. So you always refer that on the so and so date you have already filed so and so and so and so documents, letters, so and so. In furtherance to that, now you are submitting the further documents. So please give a cross reference. This will give an chance that if the officer has missed something, you are reminding him once again. And at the end, you are mentioning that if he wants some clarification, he should sort it out from the SSC. So both these things you should always remember when you are making a communication. Do put these things in your communication letter. Now, coming to this, let us deal with the e-appeal proceedings also, which will be more or less similar to what is the e-assessment proceedings, except the procedural and the legal part here changes a bit. So just let's go through this. We are at 12 and we have still 1 hour. So we will take around 30 minutes for this e-proceeding, and I can understand there are certain queries which have been raised. So we will take those queries at the end of this e-appeal proceedings. So as I said, now filing of the appeal through online has become mandatory, and the appeal hearing in this new regime of e-appeal proceedings will now be held on online platform. We have started receiving the notices for hearing of the appeal. We have to attend these proceedings and see how these proceedings go on. So let's start from the beginning. So once an assessment order is passed, you have to file the appeal online and you have to draft the grounds of appeal. Now, considering the new regime, the drafting of grounds of appeal, and this I will spend some time on this. So an appeal is required to be filed within 30 days from the service of the assessment order. And once the order is uploaded on the portal, it is a good service. And you have, the moment you check receive the order, from that date your 30 days shall be counted. The grounds should be concise. It should not be very argumentative. You understand, when you are raising a grounds of appeal, use a particular proper pattern, highlight the controversy which is involved. For example, if it is a depreciation issue, so highlight the head that this ground is a depreciation issue, and thereafter you elaborate that particular ground. Use separate paragraphs, separate heads for each grounds of appeal. Do not mix the issue of depreciation and issue of section 68 loan together, one after the other. Give different heads and try to explain each ground separately. See that your grounds are not too lengthy, vague. Don't try to put your submissions in your grounds of appeal. Submissions are different, and raising your grounds, your contentions are different. So when you are raising a grounds of appeal, be very specific that you are raising this particular grounds of issue and why the assessing officer is wrong. And it should be very short and simple, so that by reading the ground, the officer or the concerned appellate authority should become aware that this is the controversy, this is the amount which is involved, this is the provision of law which is involved in this particular issue. Many times the grounds are so lengthy and complicated that after reading the grounds also, you don't come to know which is the what is the issue involved or what is the amount which is involved. Many times the amount is not appearing in the grounds at all. So these types of things should be avoided. Try to bring draft the ground in such a manner that the issue should come out from on reading of that particular grounds of appeal. uh, as I said, ground should not be too lengthy, general, or vague. It should be very specific what you want to contend. Specific ground should be raised for each ground, as I have mentioned. Figures should involve, should be mentioned. Legal ground regarding limitation issues, natural justice, if any opportunity of hearing has not been given. I have seen that many orders are passed at the fag end of the assessment is done. Just one opportunity is given, a show causes notice is issued at the fag end of the assessment, and thereafter the order is passed. If these issues are involved, try to raise this issue as the first preliminary issue in your grounds of appeal. Jurisdictional issues has to be raised first, and thereafter your other grounds should come. So all these grounds should be taken care at the initial stage when you are drafting the grounds of appeal, and thereafter the other issues should come. Language, as I said, language should never be harsh. You should not use language making that the officer ultimately the assessing officer is part of the income tax department and the CIT is there. So avoid using any harsh words against the officers. The statement of facts, along with the grounds of appeal, you are entitled to file statement of facts. I understand the statement of facts, the provision now which is made on the online portal, there is a restriction on the number of words. So in such a situation, how we can cope up? We can also make attachment along with your grounds of appeal. So along with the grounds and statement of fact, there is certain provision to make attachments when you are filing the appeal. So what you can do, you can file your statement of facts in nutshell as far as the portal is concerned. However, you file a detailed statement of facts along with as an attachment when you are filing the appeal. When you are filing the statement of facts as an attachment, make a detailed statement of facts where you narrate right from filing of your return, what has happened, how the notices have been issued, how many notices have been issued, what are the replies you have filed, and what is the issues which were involved. Try to give an elaborate statement of facts, because this statement of facts is very important, because this statement of facts will be carried further to the appellate authorities also. And at times this statement of facts will also help in case the SSC is not able to appear before the CIT appeal for any reason, or before the any other appellate authorities, these statement of facts will go along with your appeal memo, and it will be used to understand the issues involved in the matter. So see that you give all the complete facts in your statement of facts. If there is any factual error in the assessment order, that has to be brought out very clearly and specifically with help of dates, figures, other factors which are there involved in the each case, that has to be brought out very clearly. This elaborate statement of facts will also help you at a later stage when you are appearing before the when the appeal comes up for hearing, because this statement of normally your appeal will come up for hearing after a year or so. If you have drafted a detailed statement of facts, all the facts once you have brought out, it becomes very easy at that particular time to prepare your written submissions. Also, it helps the officer, the concerned appellate authority, to read your statement of facts in beforehand. If he is going through and there is some adjournment which has been taken place, or for any reason the SSC is not able to appear, this statement of facts will help the officer to pass a correct order, understanding the correct facts which is involved in the matter, and thereafter dispose of the appeal. You should understand the appellate authority are entitled to dispose the appeal on merits. They cannot pass an order saying that the appeal is not maintainable because of non-prosecution by the SSC. So this statement of facts, if it is filed, he has to go through this and pass a speaking order on the appeal. If there are clerical mistakes, arithmetical mistake, the same should be highlighted. It should be brought out in the grounds as well as in the statement of facts. A separate rectification application can also be filed in regards to the same. But though you have filed the same, you can raise the same points again in your statement of facts. If in case there is a delay in filing the appeal before the CIT appeals, so you are entitled to file a application for condonation of delay. Please draft a specific application for condonation of delay. Just don't try to add this condonation of delay in your statement of facts or in your grounds of appeal and be at rest. If you have a delay in filing the appeal, kindly specify, make a separate application requesting for condonation of delay. State with reasons why the delay has been there, what are the number of days delay which has occurred, and why it has occurred so. Also, if there are some factual aspects involved in regards to the delay, for example, you were not well, you were hospitalized, or you were on traveling, such type of facts which are involved, you can also support your application for condonation of delay along with an affidavit wherein you can state the reasons for delay along with the facts involved, so that the facts which are within your personal knowledge has to be come out on the form of an affidavit. The limitation, you have to mention when was the last date for filing the appeal and when actually you have filed the appeal, and the gap whatever has happened, you have to explain the delay. The law on delay is very clear. Various courts have elaborated on this, that normally the court has to take a very liberal approach in matter of condoning the delay. The only requirement what the court sees is that the SST should come with clean hands. He should not give vague reasons. He should not come with some malified intention. The reasons for delay should not be as such which is on some flimsy ground. If you go with the correct facts and details, according to me, delays are condoned. The courts have condoned delay of more than 500 or even 1,000 days delay, but all that depends upon facts of each case. You cannot have a general thumb rule that in each case this number of delays has to be condoned. So you have to make out a good case for condoning the delay. I have list out certain legal principles which you can go through, which basically is culled out from various decision how the courts look into while making an condoning the delay. Hearing As I said, that in the new regime, the hearing are not being provided. It is given. It is very subjective that in case you make an application to the chief commissioner, the chief commissioner may grant you a facility of video conferences. The criteria, the mechanism, in which case it will be allowed, in which case it will not be allowed, what is the basis for allowing these types of application for video conference facility has not been elaborated. In view of the same, in few cases, the people have some SSCs have challenged this scheme, this provision of this scheme, and Delhi High Court in one of the cases, Lakshya Buddhiraja, has admitted the petition and issued notice to the CBDT asking them to explain their stand and how this how this provision for video conferencing will be allowed in class of cases. Because right of hearing cannot be discriminatory, it cannot be given to one particular class of SSC and avoided in other class. It has to have some rationale behind it. There has to be some reason behind it, and thereafter only it can be allowed. So this matters are there which is pending. The outcome of this proceedings will throw more light on this aspect, how the hearing takes place. However, without prejudice to this, I will like to deal with two stand of hearing, because see, hearing, as I said in the beginning, today the chartered accountants are entitled not only to appear before the income tax authority but various other authorities. At other places, the video conferencing are allowed. Also, at certain places, physical hearing is allowed. So, when I am explaining these points, it has to be understood in a comprehensive manner and not try to restrict it to only the proceedings of a first appellate authority before the CIT appeal. So now for a personal hearing, I will deal with the video conferencing, because nowadays most of the hearings are being held in a video conferencing. You must have received certain jokes and videos also, that during the live video conferencing, suddenly something happens. The either the council or the representatives are conducting the hearing in a car, or they are conducting the hearing wearing a very inappropriate dress, or the background is not very appropriate. So all this has to be taken care when you are having a video conferencing. You have to be very sure about your surroundings. Try to avoid having conducting a hearing in an open place where others are coming forth and out, which will create a disturbing feature on the background. Try to have a plain background. There are various alternatives that you can use it to avoid if your background is not proper. It has come to knowledge that many a times the hearing, when it is conducted, the councils or the representatives are not in a proper dress. Though it is a video conferencing, but the decorum should be maintained. If you are appearing before a particular authority, you should try to see that you come in a proper dress. If there is a uniform code, then you try to use that particular dress code, and do not try to overcome that, because it looks and it gives a very wrong impression to the particular forum if you are not following the decorum. Through video conferencing, there are challenges. We have to be prepared in advance about our representation. You have to see that your submissions and your paper books are being filed well in advance. If required, you should always prepare a brief note, a summary note of your submissions and your documents we had submitted, which you can share it through email, or during the hearing you can share it and show it to the officers, or during the hearing you can share it with the officers, which will be easy to explain your case. When you are doing video conferencing, you cannot be at very length, you cannot talk, you cannot put your argument in lengthy. So you have to rely on your written submission, on your notes. Be very specific when you are referring to pages, documents, submissions, judgments. Be very specific. Try to see that the officer is with you. He is also looking at the same documents and submissions. Try to answer the as much as the queries are being raised through video conferencing, And if you are following these particular norms beforehand, then I think so there will be a smooth sailing when you are having a video conferencing. Now, during this COVID period, I had a TP matter where comparables were involved. The clients were at Pune. In this whole situation, we had a very good conference on online. We prepared the matter, we filed the papers, we conducted the hearing also online before the tribunal, and it went on very smooth. And we were able to communicate and convey our points to the members in a very convenient manner. We had prepared charts, tables, necessary judgments, reference to relevant paragraph, and we had filed it in advance. And I will tell you that it was a very smooth hearing which went on. The conferences with the client was also on online. So really, without meeting the clients, we went through the whole process in such a smooth manner. So in this new regime, you have to understand, learn this new technology. You have to invest in technology, get proper computer device, communicate the connection, internet connection, hearing aid can be provided. You should have a proper room in your office where you can conduct this proceedings. Gone are the days where you used to have large cabins. Now you should have a very specific, very small cabin where you can conduct your video conferences with these different authorities. So all these things you need to take care and update your office with this latest electronic devices. And you should have a room for having a video conferences if it is possible, so that disturbance can be minimum and things can be avoided. uh, So I have already spoken about the written submission and paper book. You have to file it in time, do the proper indexation, numbering. CIT appeal has to pass a speaking order. So he has to deal with each grounds. If you have filed a proper submission, giving the dealing with each grounds of appeal on merits, along with the judicial pronouncement, I see there should not be any question of any error, or there should not be any question of misunderstanding of facts, that the appellate authority will pass any erroneous order. If all this has been considered, I will, according to me, there will be a just and fair order which will be passed in your case. So all these things should be done well in advance. You cannot wait for the last moment to file all these details. And these things, if you are coping up well, I think so there will be a smooth sailing through the whole process. Therefore, written submission should be, as I explained, your submission should be drafted. The same principle will apply what I had explained earlier for filing your reply. Your submission should be simple. It should not be very lengthy. It should be specific. Give reference to the supporting document. Your case should come out in your written submission. If you are relying on a judgment, just don't cite the judgment. Explain why that judgment is relevant in your case, how the facts of that judgment are directly applicable to facts of your case. Explain the relevant provision, what is involved. So all these facts you may take note of, and if all this is put properly in your written submission, I think that there should not be any problem in your matter. So these are the same points what I have just now explained. I have put it in a point form, which you can just go through it. Uh, the main controversy and the prayer, main is what the relief you want should be highlighted. It you require, you may repeat the same at the end of your submission, that this is your prayer and this is your relief that you are seeking from the authority, so that there is no mistake which is committed by the authority while granting you the relief. So as we know that the CIT appeal has the power to make the further inquiries, and if he thinks he can direct the AO to carry out the inquiries. Earlier, the remand report was sought by the CIT appeal by sending a remand report to the officer. Now in the new regime, also there are provision where the CIT appeal can make a reference to the officer to conduct the necessary inquiries and submit a report. So these things, if required, you can file the necessary document and request for carrying out the inquiries by the CIT appeal. So if you have some additional evidence to be produced, see that you file a separate application along with the reasons why these additional evidence could not be filed before the AO, and why now it should be admitted. So give all these explanation, prepare a separate paper book of documents that are additional evidence, upload the same with the CIT appeal, give your explanation on the same, refer to the rule 46 capital A and say why these applications should be admitted in this matter. If you have made out a very good case for admission of the additional evidence, the CIT appeal has to admit the same and forward it to the concerned officer to make the necessary inquiry and submit the report. So in this context, you have to make reference to Rule 46 capital A for the CIT appeal also in its own discretion can ask the SSC to produce the documents and evidence in support of the case. Raising an additional ground, I have explained earlier that in case you have some additional ground to be raised, these powers are there. The CIT appeal in the new regime also try to raise the additional ground at least at the first hearing. When you receive the notice, kindly raise your additional ground immediately. While raising the additional ground, kindly explain why this ground you have raised now at this stage, why it has been missed out from the earlier when you are filing the main appeal, and try to make out a case for admission of your additional ground. Thereafter, when you are filing your written submission, give a separate submission on the points of the additional ground and the relief that you have sought on the additional ground. Making a claim for the first time, making the claim for the first time, I have already explained this point, that when you are raising a claim for the first time before the appellate authority, give the explanation to the appellate authority why this claim was not raised in the original proceedings, why you are raising this claim now. Give the supporting documents in this regard. You can always refer to the circular, earlier circular of 1995 and 90, wherein it provides that the ignorance of the SSC should be ignored, and if any grounds are there, that has to be admitted. The claim has to be admitted by the SSC. One second. Proper submission in this regard along with supporting evidence has to be filed in support of the same, in support of the new claim. And once these submissions and documents are filed before the appellate authority shall conduct an independent inquiry on these points, and thereafter he may call for a remand report, admit those grounds, those claims, and thereafter adjudicate the same. So in my view, in these types of proceeding, the challenges are there. However, these are not something that we, as a professional, we cannot deal with the same. What is required now, that you have to be prepared with these things beforehand and not wait for the last minute. You cannot wait till the end that yes, the hearing will come and at that stage I will deal with the same. You have to prepare yourself well in advance. Be sure what you are submitting. Put your explanation and your contention in such a manner that even a layman, if goes through your submission, he would understand what is your point of controversy which is involved. Refer to the provision of law very specifically. If there are changes in that law, the interpretation what is involved has to be brought out very clearly and specifically in your written submission. So I have given some points of art of representation that you can just read it at your leisure. The point what is involved in making effective and good representation what is important is your writing skills. When you are writing and you are explaining your point, you have to sit in the shoes of the officer and try to understand how he is looking at the matter, how he is seeing the particular issue involved, and why he has raised the necessary show cause notice. And accordingly, you have to draft your submission. You don't have to draft your submission in the way what you have understood the matter. You have to bring out a case before the assessing officer to see that the suspicion what has been created in his mind, or the query what has been raised in the mind of the officer, can be resolved. I understand these things earlier used to resolve when you were sitting across the table with the officer. You used to understand his query, you used to understand his doubts, you used to understand his contention, and you used to resolve the same at the on the table at the same time by putting forth your points, by showing the documents. But now this process is not available. So therefore you have to be very patient. You have to be understand what the assessing officer is looking for, what is the reply that he is looking for, and accordingly you have to draft your submission and put forth before him. If you have taken your point somewhere in a very different direction than to the query raised by the assessing officer, I will say that unfortunately the result will be something else, because he will not be satisfied with your submission, and he will pass an order which ultimately will be contrary to what you have prayed for. So you have to understand these things. Try to understand the psychology of the other side who has raised the query, and thereafter you have to put your reply. So the art of representation is more of a persuasion, but persuasion now cannot be done in a physical manner. It has to flow from your correspondence, it has to flow from your writing skills, and therefore use of best writing skills is must. This was something which earlier nobody used to look at. Yes, in advocacy there was lot of drafting work which was involved, and therefore these skills were always used to be developed over a period of time. It's the same is now required on your side also, because it is not that just the representation through submission of your accounts the things will be resolved. Now you are have to equip yourself with a good writing skill. You have to read judgments, you have to draft submissions and put forth before the officer, so that he will understand the issues involved in your matter and pass necessary orders. So here we are trying to focus, and I have tried to focus on two aspects, is the assessment and the first appellate level. Similar will be the proceedings if you are making application for rectification, or you are making an application under section 264, or you are making some other application. Your application has to be very comprehensive, you have to be very specific on your points, you have to provide the complete details. There is no area left for ifs and buts. If you have not filled certain details, or you have not provided certain information, either the same will be rejected, or the relief what you have sought will not be allowed. So these are the some important aspects of a good draftsman that you have to keep in mind. Knowledge of, as I said in the beginning, knowledge of facts, law, and procedure is must. You have a good writing skill, good presentation skill, which will help you to put forth your contentions before the officers, concerned officer, in a very simple and lucid manner, which will ultimately help you to get the relief what you are seeking before the relevant authorities. So friends, with this I have tried to cover up the maximum points which I felt was necessary in this on this topic. If there are some queries which are there, I will be happy to take the questions. If somebody can help me out with the queries.
Yes, I have noted down the
Yes.
questions, so I can share my screen and we can read
Yes.
through. Either you can read or
Yes. Yes, please.
Mm, yeah, I'm just sharing the screen. Give me a minute. Uh, is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is visible.
Okay.
Okay, so let me deal with the first query. What are the special skills required in drafting and representation, particularly in the faceless e-assessment or appeals and proceeding? I think so. This is a query I have already answered, but the special skills that, as I said, is you have to have a good writing skill. You have to understand the facts, the law, the procedure. Try to be as simple as you can. Understand the query, understand the show cause notice before you reply. Please read the show cause notice at least 3 times before you are drafting your reply. Please read it 3 times. Please discuss it with your colleagues, with the particular SSC before answering or replying to the particular query or the show cause notice of the SSC. Many a times we miss the lines. We miss to understand why the assessing officer has raised this query. It is very important to understand why the officer has raised such a query, and accordingly you should frame your question, your reply to the officer. So the special skills, according to me, is that you need to develop it over a period of time. Spend more time in understanding the facts, read more and more judgments, law, see how the courts are interpreting the particular provision, and accordingly you have to develop your writing skills over a period of time. As I said, it is a matter of presentation, how neat, good, simple, lucid manner you put forth your submission. Whether draft assessment order will be shared with the SSC under the new scheme before finally passing the order. My experience up till now is that in few cases I have heard that it is, as I'm not representing in the assessment proceeding, but draft assessment orders are being shared to some chartered accountants have informed that they have been shared. However, few of them have informed that these draft order are not being shared. So according to me, this is not very clear as of now whether this draft assessment order will be shared to the SSC under the new regime before finding the passing the order. According to me, it should be shared so that the SSC can finally reply, and if there is something that can be looked into by the concerned officer, because what I understand, the officer who will be conducting the assessment proceedings and drafting the order, and the finally the order which will be passed, there will be 2 or 3 different officers which will be involved. So it is very necessary that if the SSC say is there, it may be recorded before the final order is passed. Whether it is mandatory to issue draft order to the SSC if any addition is proposed, whether a remedy is available if final order with addition is issued without a draft order can be challenged. Answer is yes. If there is no show cause notice or there is no draft order wherein this particular addition or disallowance is mentioned, you have a right to challenge. In fact, I would go one step ahead. According to me, there has to be a show cause notice for each additions or disallowance. If there is no show cause notice, you can always take this ground that this was never questioned, this was never put forth to me, and directly this addition has been made without raising a query to the SSC. What that means that whenever there is an intention of making any addition or adjustment in returned income show cause, see, this is always beginning. There was there. It was not that in this new regime it is there. Even in the old regime, there has to be a show cause notice if you are making an addition. We used to challenge when we used to argue the matter in tribunal. We used to challenge this issue before the tribunal that there was no query raised by the assessing officer, and without asking the details, these additions are being made. So these was always the ground in the old regime also, and according to me now in the new regime it has become more necessary because now there is no physical hearing involved. So whatever the assessing officer is going to do, there should be a show cause, and there has to be something which is put forth to the SSC and seek his reply before making an addition. Whether Submission will also be required when during physical representation before CIT appeal submissions were made, whether erstwhile CIT appeal office is uploading the submission made by the appellant to the CIT appeals faceless. What I have given to understand from these are all internal department procedure. What I have been understood that the files of the CIT appeals are being forwarded to the concerned CIT appeals. However, this will take some time because the old matters, if I have already attended and filed the submission paper book, this will take some time for them to scan it, upload it, or to forward the whole file to the concerned officer. So the best practice which I am following is that in those types of matters, I am myself scanning it and uploading it on the portal and informing that this has already been done in the physical representation earlier made prior to the new regime. So that same may be considered. If there is something additional you want to add, you will add it further. In case a notice has come for part heard appeal, where whatever is already submitted during the personal hearing is also to be sent once again duly scanned. According to me, yes, you cannot take a chance because, as I said, we don't know whether the department has forwarded or not. That information is not available with us. So the better course of action should be that whatever you have filed, you should upload it the same so that it is available, and you have to mention this fact in the box which is available for putting your small note that these were already filed with the department on so and so date and hearing had taken place, and now a fresh notice has come, so therefore the same is uploaded. In case of e-assessment, last submission made in January 2021, no reply from department till date, no draft order is received. What action needs to be taken? In case of e-assessment, last submission made in Jan, no reply from department till date. You have to go on portal and you have to inform. Now there is no system where you can go and meet the officer. So be on the portal and you just put that your submission and so has been done on so and so date. If there is any further query or clarification, please let me know well in advance so that you can answer or resolve the query of the officer and give a reference about the details what you have already filed. So this is what you can do, and you have to wait for the order. Faceless final order issue, faceless final order 143.3 issued with words assessed income is nil, but in the computation attached with the order demand is reflected due to ATP not considered for this mistake apparent from record. Can rectification be done or appeal is the only remedy? Rectification can be done. File the rectification immediately. If the rectification is not done within 30 days, I would advise don't take a chance, file a appeal also. Otherwise, your appeal will be delayed and thereafter there will be a issue of condonation of delay. So file your rectification immediately, and if it is your query is resolved within next 15 to 20 days, you need not file a appeal. But if it is not, better course of action is that to file an appeal and keep the appeal also pending. When no 133.6 notice are issued by AO in case of bogus purchase and no independent inquiry is carried out but just relied on the so and so, whether such estimated addition of 12.75 will stand in the first appeal. See, once there is no inquiry on so and so, you can raise these grounds before the CIT appeals and take up these issues before the CIT appeal. The only question is that the CIT appeal will now, if provides you all this particular details and all this information, whatever is there, and thereafter he will pass the order on merits. So not giving an inquiry or not giving an opportunity of looking onto the details of the ADGIT sales tax department can be made good by the department before the first appellate authority. So this estimated addition of 12.5% or 7.5%, you have to argue it on merits, try to lead evidence from your side why this addition is not justified merely on basis of certain information which is not on the record of the department because the same was never provided to the SSC, not the SSC has never been confronted on the same. So you can raise this ground to say that there has to be a total deletion of the addition, but at the same time on merits you have to also put forth your case that why this addition is totally unjustified merely on basis of information. question number 10, appeal under 143(1) filed in so and so, but now faceless final order is issued which accepts claim under so and so, then what will be the status of the appeal, or this order should be taken final portal till reflect outstanding demand. Till your demand outstanding is there, you should continue with your 143(1) proceeding. Yes, but whenever the hearing comes, you have to point out that there is a order passed subsequently under 143(3), wherein there is no addition made, and or this particular issue has been resolved, and therefore this appeal becomes infructuous. In case that addition is sustained, the computation is carried out under 143(1) without discussion under 143, then according to me you should pursue your 143(1), stating that the order passed under 141 is wrong. That audition cannot be that addition or disallowance cannot be made under a prima facie adjustment under 143(1), and therefore that is void, and you should argue it independently unless until the final notice of demand reflects the correct position. Whether SSC is required to ask AO to issue notice under 133(6), it should read 133(6) notice, or it is a duty of AO to issue such notice because it is option available to the AO to issue such notice. See, the option is always available with the AO, but the AOs are not exercising that option. So if they are not exercising this option, you have to point out that, look, I am not in a position to produce this third party evidence. I am not able to get this confirmation from so and so party. I am not able to produce this party personal balance sheet, return of income, etc., etc. And therefore, kindly you take the necessary action by issuing necessary notice under 133(6) or under 131(1) to get this information statement or any other documents which are necessary and for the completion of the assessment. So you should make this request and don't wait that the assessing officer will act on his own. Goes India decision is for new claim of deduction or allowance, but if SSC has not claimed any TDS as it did not appear in 26 AS, but subsequently during the assessment proceeding a claim is raised on TDS, whether AO will be duty bound. See, regarding TDS, there are different issue of TDS credit stands on a different footing at all. According to me, TDS credit is not an issue of a new claim. TDS credit is something that you should allow. Please read the Delhi High Court decision which was passed on its own motion. So there it was very clearly explained that TDS credit, whenever it is appearing, it is the right of the SSC which has to be allowed even if the SSC do not ask for the same. So according to me, it is a duty bound for the AO to allow you the tax credit which is available under the 26 AS, and there is no need, and the Goes India decision really is not a decision which has to be applied by the department in such type of cases. TDS credit is a matter of right. Once it is appearing in the 26 years, the AO should allow it. At the most, you can bring it to the attention of the officer by submitting the copy of 26 AS and putting that this credit should be allowed. How will the cases on remand be assessed? Whether remand report will be issued by the jurisdictional or by the National E-Assessment Authority, Faceless. Now, this system, as what I have understood, is that once the remand report is sent, the concerned officer, the unit, which is the separate unit is there for verification, they will carry out this verification, and if required, the jurisdictional assessing officer will be directed to complete the verification and submit the report, which will be carried forward with the CIT appeal. So the verification unit and the e-assessment which is there will conduct these types of inquiry, and if that unit requires, it will forward it to the necessary authorities. And the remand report, once it is received, it will be shared with the SSC for their reply. Is it advisable to only bring the facts of the case before ITO without giving reference to any case law relied upon, and case law may be brought out on first appeal? So now this depends on facts of each case. If you will ask me generally, I will explain. If the assessing officer is just asking for some information, so you provide him the information without going into or hitting around the bushes. You just provide him the. If the assessing officer is issuing you a show cause notice, asking you why this addition should be made or deletion should not be made, So on that particular point, you explain your case, and if there is some direct case law, then you give a reference to the case law. Or if there is some issue of interpretation of any provision is involved, in support of your interpretation, what you have putting forth, you rely on some decision. But please rely on few direct decisions. More so if you are in Mumbai, try to rely on a Mumbai decision or a Mumbai High Court. If there is a Supreme Court, rely on that Supreme Court. But there is no need to rely on 10 decisions. Maybe 2 or 3 direct decision is more than sufficient. In case where cross-examination opportunity was given but the other party did not appear, though the SSC did appear all the time, whether appellant can argue before CI that no cross could be taken, therefore third party should be, yes, you can take it. That is certainly allowed. You will take it. You are entitled to take this plea. The only question will be whether the CIT appeal on your plea will allow your appeal, or he may give you an additional opportunity that now the AO has not provided. Now I am providing, kindly go, the assessing officer will allow you the cross-examination, because the first appellate authority powers are there equivalent to that of an assessing officer, and therefore he may direct the officer to allow you this particular cross-examination. In 2016, when online appeal was mandatory, but appellant did not file online, but proceedings were carried out by CIT by issuing notice. More than 5 to 6 hearing takes place. Transfer delay was asked. However, CIT will dismiss the manual appeal, but stated online appeal cannot be. But because it was filed manually, SSA did not appeal before ITB due to certain reason, hoping that the delay in filing online appeal will be condoned. Now CIT appeal Faceless has issued notice to file the details. If you are not opting for Vivad se Vivad, can the CIT appeal in new ITT order refuse to condone the delay and dismiss the appeal instead of passing an order? See, normally in these cases, there are already Mumbai tribunal orders are there. If there is a delay, if the how much delay is there, you have not mentioned, but you should try to file an appeal before ITT with condonation of delay and file it before the. I am sure that ITAT will condone the delay and remit the matter back to the CIT appeals for deciding the case on merits. Once the ITAT condones the delay and remits the matter back, and if this process can happen in next 20 days, because your Vivad se Vishwas scheme is till 31st March, so if it can happen within this time frame, then you will be benefited. At that time, you can take a call whether you want to proceed the matter on merits or you want to go in Vivad se Vishwas scheme. But you should, according to me, you should certainly try this out before ITAT. And as far as CIT appeal, your earlier appeal where he is considering that, you can always decide on merits or go for Vivad se Vishwas scheme. You can take a call on that. To which authority rectification application is to be submitted for inadvertent mistake, NCR or jurisdictional AO? How to file with NCA, as there is no provision on ITAT portal for that. As far as this is concerned, the practical solution, I am not aware, because on the portal, I understand on the same portal, you have to file the rectification application. You can also file it with the email ID of your jurisdictional assessing officer. Right now, they have not shared all these types of mistake. If there is any communication, see, today, if you want to communicate, for example, you want to take an inspection of your assessment records. Earlier, your officer were there. You can go file an application and take the inspection. Now, where to go? Whom to ask for inspection? Where is your records? Now, these types of issues have not been resolved. These types of issues have not been explained, where I should go to take inspection. Earlier, if my records are misplaced, I can go take inspection, take copies. But now there is no such provision which is there, which is given where I can make such type of application. So we have to wait how this scheme revolves, and thereafter we can take it. When in notice 142, AO can ask to submit the detail, mention that you object to reopening, may file the same before certain date. However, the SSC objected to reopening after the said date. However, you did not dispose of. See, if you have missed the date of filing the objection, the assessing officer to certain extent is justified in not disposing your objection unless you have requested for adjournment or some time. But as he has dealt it in the assessment order and you have raised this objection in the course of the assessment proceeding, according to me, you have to repeat your request to the assessing officer to dispose your objection, at least though it was belatedly filed. Uh, Sir, if you can share case laws on admission of additional ground before CIT appeal. In my slides, I have shared few judgments are there. But if you want, there are certain articles which I have written on appeal. I think so. I have presented that before JB Nagar study circle also earlier. If that presentation is there, or you can come back to me, I will share with you. In my slides, I have in my note I have shared this judgment on page number 14. When during the assessment proceedings,
कुमार का नंबर नहीं है, सतीश कुमार का नंबर अपने रिकॉर्ड में देखिए रिकॉर्ड.
when during the assessment proceeding no opportunity was given for crossing, I can CIT subsequently you. Yes, he can give an CIT appeal has the power to give you the opportunity to for cross examination. Because it may lead to say where all the cases were heard, he will get a second. Yes, in such a situation, the AOs do get a second chance, but CIT appeal has the power to grant you a right of cross-examination at the first appellate authority. In fact, when we go before ITAT also, many a times ITAT also set aside the matter back to the AO or the CIT appeal, asking them to provide the opportunity of cross-examination. Sir, when CIT appeal asked for remand report, in such a case, there is a time limit to AO to submit it. There is no such time limit, unfortunately. In many cases, it takes years also, and the officers are transferred thereafter, and still the remand reports are not issued. I think so in the new regime, if there is some time limit which is fixed, that will enable to completion of the appellate proceeding in a much faster and a quicker way. The new amendment scheme declared in the budget to make even ITT proceeding even clear. Do you think it's a practical? I have come to know CBT is examining. Up till now, the information what I have is that all the Bar Association of India at all levels and various association has made representation to defer this for the time being, because up till now this CIT appeal faceless assessment faceless appeal has not been implemented completely, and we have not seen the outcome of that, and therefore immediately doing with ITAT faceless is not advisable. Secondly, ITAT is not a body which comes under CBDT. ITAT is a body which is an independent quasi-judicial authority. It comes under the Ministry of Law and Justice. So really CBDT cannot examine the feasibility of implementation of this scheme. CBDT is not the correct authority for examining it. We have been given to understand that the faceless what they are trying to apply to ITAT as it is applied to assessment proceeding and CIT appeal, it will not be in the same manner. The right of hearing will not be taken away. At the most, they will try to implement the video conferencing to an extent. However, the manner in which the AO assessment and CIT appeal, it will not be coming forth in the same manner. And still it will take some more time for implementing the same. In the new faceless appeal, any time limit to complete the appeal, complete the assessment? No, it should be complete the appeal. It will be the similar time limit what is there after the hearing. It should be complete at the earliest point of time, but there is no such time limit up till now. It is there. Where no show cause notice issued, the addition. Where no show cause notice is issued for addition, yes, we can do it, challenge it. When issues are resolved and we withdraw, I have answered this at 26 also. Come to question number 27. Clerical mistake in return found now. Case is not selected for scrutiny, only intimation is received. Any remedy available? Yes, you file a 154, and if the point involved is there, you file a appeal also. Come to question number 28. Yeah, for 1314 CPC has only processed original issue and issued 143(1) order. His revised return filed within due date are not processed yet. Any remedy available for the SSC? In between, there was a scheme where such type of returns which are not processed, the CPC is looking forward, and it was requested by the SSC to come forth with their claims and so and so. So SSC should have taken that benefit. I am not aware whether that scheme is still available or not, but you can still apply to the CPC for getting your revised return rectified and taken on record. Check whether there was any defect in your revised return or not, and therefore it has not been considered. These are the practical difficulties which it is very difficult to, because law doesn't come here. Here the more the procedure and rules are played. So more is that you have to communicate to the officers and thereafter try to resolve these issues. In case of a return filed in March 17, wherein wrong closing stock was mentioned, what stand can one take during the course of scrutiny proceeding for March 2018, as the AO is relying on the closing stock figure mentioned in March return? The said error was corrected in March return. If it was corrected, give the correct facts. Try to explain why, what was the mistake. Come out with correct facts, but see that you show that it was an unintentional mistake, because it may land up you that your audited, if the audited return is there or something, you have given an incorrect figure. So be careful when you are replying on that, but bring out that it was a clerical mistake which has crept on unintentionally. When TDS do not appear in turn because defector has either not deposited the cash or has not filed TDS, and whether right or TDS credit can be refused by the AO. In such a situation, you should write to the concerned person, defector, that party, give that notice copy to the assessing officer and ask the assessing officer to initiate action against the defector. There is a Bombay High Court decision. It was passed by Justice Dharmadhikari, which had asked the department to initiate prosecution against these types of SSCs who have not paid the deposited the tax to the government, because of which the other SSCs are suffering. And actually, it was because of that decision so many prosecution notices have been issued for late deposit of TDS. So you have a right to ask the assessing officer and department to initiate action against that person, and you should have a right to claim the TDS on in respect of this particular amount. 31. How many queries are there finally? Is it
34?
okay? 31. Is it necessary to have power of attorney, since reply may be given directly in the name of SSC on the portal? Since reply is given from CEO office, but thought SSC login, what precaution? See, if you are representing a SSC, it is up to you how you are going to represent. If you are representing an SSC, you are making the submission. So it is always better to take a authority letter, power of attorney, what is required, and file it. Yes, if your SSC wants to make a representation directly through his account and you don't want to get involved, then in that case, it is not required. So it is up to you how you want to take, because there are pros and cons to that. And with all proceedings, you may not come to know, but there are other places where the chartered accountant will have to step in and file the reply, take the necessary steps in regards to the same. So you have to take a call on that, what you have to. Sir, if book profit of previous is converted into book loss due to applicability of index and the amount is substantial, can return be revised or rectification filed for getting excess tax paid last year? Regards. If your time limit for revised return is there, you file a revised return. If the time limit is not available, you try.
In remand report, AO has issued 133(6) to supplier, but supplier not submitted any document to AO. Due to having good relation with our clients, but in appeal we have submitted stock records, bank statement with the possibility in appeal or any judgment. This is very means a question will have to be answered seeing the facts of the case. Yes, there are many judgments and you have a good case according to me. So you have to bring out a case, and certainly you have a good case before the first appellate authority. But all this will have to require seeing the documents, and really thereafter somebody can answer this. Can notice under 271(1)(b) be issued after order under 143 for that assessment year? Yes, it can be issued. Whether ITAT order will prevail over other state higher order? No. ITAT is a smaller forum, and therefore other High Court order will prevail over the ITAT order, though it is a non-jurisdictional higher order, if it is on the same point. If the ITAT order has considered that High Court order and decided still in the favor of the SSC at a subsequent date, then yes, you can say that the ITAT, after considering the High Court order of the other state, has passed the order, and therefore you should follow the order of the ITAT. So that you can argue it out, and there are some decision to that effect. There is an article which is available on IT online on rule of precedent. You can go through it. It is also published in Journal of Chamber, and AFTP also on rule of precedent is a very good article. There is a separate book also issued by AFTP on rule of precedence and interpretation of law. You can buy that book. It is very good book on dealing on this subject. So with this, friend, I have tried to answer all your queries and tried to complete this session. If any other queries there, you can please come to me offline, and I will be happy to resolve the same. With this, thank you very much to all the organization of JB Nagar Study Circle, and to Seema, Nidhi, Krishna ji, for all the coordination and for conducting such a wonderful lecture. Thank you, friends, and all the participants for giving me a patient hearing on this Sunday afternoon and being with me for almost 2 hours for on this subject. Uh, Thank you very much, and be safe. And we will look for meeting you in person when GB Study Circle will start organizing its physical meeting. I will look forward for coming physically at your forum. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such an informative session. Uh, uh, you had covered the topic, this drafting and related skills before income tax authority, and quoted few case laws and given the practical examples, and also conveyed what we should do and what we should not do during the assessment. So on behalf of JV Nagar CP Study Circle, I propose a hearty vote of thanks to the speaker, Sri Ajay Singh ji, for the informative and wonderful session. I also thanks to the participants for making the session very lively and patient listening. Thank you, sir. Thanks
Thank you.
a lot. Yeah.